Having two analog sticks on a controller has become as standard as the power button on a console. The PlayStation was the first system to have a controller with dual analog controls, a change spearheaded by Ape Escape. Ape Escape has players running around as Spike, hunting down and capturing monkeys all over time and space. Ape Escape's main selling point was its use of the dual analog controller, called the DualShock. The left stick had players moving around, while the right stick controlled the different gadgets players earned throughout the game. Fast forward to 2005, and Sony is about to launch the PSP, their first real attempt at the portable gaming market. And despite not having two analog sticks, Ape Escape was remade for the new system as Ape Escape On the Loose. On the Loose is a beat-for-beat remake of the original Ape Escape. Spectre, a notable monkey at a local amusement park, manages to get his mitts on a helmet that heightens his intelligence to that of a human. Alongside the 204 monkeys he manages to recruit, Spectre hijacks a time machine and goes on a spree to change history and erase humanity from existence. That's probably the heaviest you could put Ape Escape's plot. In reality, On the Loose is very lighthearted. Sets of levels typically come in threes, with themes being very colorful and vibrant. Textures are limited in exchange for lively apes that don't vary and look too much, but are fun to chase around as they panic or try to aggressively fight back. Players may be surprised how low the field of view is in On the Loose. The classic PlayStation technique of just hiding the level in fog or darkness is ever present and sticks out like a sore thumb. Presumably, this was done to keep the frame rate consistent, which Ape Escape does thankfully do. You'll notice the fog in some levels is noticeably worse than others. On the Loose isn't the most gorgeous game you'll play on your PSP, but it holds up fair enough. At least, that's assuming none of the characters are talking. The lip sync, like a lot of games that make the jump from Japanese to English, is notably off. Not that it matters too much, On the Loose isn't exactly a gripping tale, and none of the voice acting is particularly good. Spike at least sounds his age, and the whole cast is a big step up from the original game, but that's not saying much. Past the voice acting is a solid, although passable soundtrack. Most tracks aren't bad, but they all use the same basic, fast, techno-ish drum backing in an attempt to give them energy. In some cases, this works, but others, it'll be about as bad as the fog. Without two analog sticks, putting Ape Escape on the PSP sounds like it'd be missing the point. If you've played the original, On the Loose does take some time to get used to. The benefit of the second analog stick meant that you could snap Spike in any given direction when using the stun saber or the net. On the Loose feels a little clunky at first since this feature is gone, but once you've cleared that small hum, the game proves to live up to the original in several aspects, even surpassing it in others. Ape Escape used almost every single button the DualShock had to offer, and On the Loose is no exception. The PSP has less buttons, therefore, jump is mapped across. This means losing a slot to equip gadgets to, and since you'll almost always need the net and stun baton, players will have to switch gadgets constantly later in the game. The gadgets were all used with the right analog stick in the original game. On the Loose maps their functions to the respective button that the gadget is equipped to. Although they all slightly lose their luster this way, certain gadgets do benefit from this restriction. In particular, the Sky Flyer is way easier to use, with triple jumps and gliding being just a few button presses away, instead of having to spin a stick. Conversely, a couple gadgets don't work so hot. The biggest offender is the RC car. The controls for the RC car are still mapped as though they were attached to a second stick. But with no second stick, how is this to work? The answer: the D-pad. Controlling this thing really sucks because of the PSP's layout. For the uninitiated, the D-pad is right above the nub, meaning there's no way to use the RC car and move Spike at the same time, which there are times you need to do to keep it in your sights. As if that weren't enough, the controls for the camera are also mapped to the D-pad. Therefore, anytime you have to reorient the camera while moving, you simply can't. The closest thing you can do is snap the camera behind Spike by hitting L, but this will cause him to stop dead in his tracks half the time. To make matters worse, the camera always feels like it's a little too close to Spike, as if some breathing room would really help with some of those tricky jumps in later stages. The worst part is, even without a second analog stick, Ape Escape On the Loose has a good game within it. Like the original, levels are colorful and offer plenty of variety. The game has a ton of replay value as there are more monkeys to catch per stage than the requirement. More gadgets mean you can backtrack to areas that were inaccessible prior to catch more monkeys and locate more of the Spectre coins to unlock minigames, like snowboarding and boxing. fighting the camera will sour players' experience with the game while playing on the PSP. Ape Escape on the Loose should be a solid launch title that the PSP needed, but in reality, it's mediocre at best. If catching apes through time is your thing, then you'd better take your game elsewhere. Right over to the Vita, of course. Wait, what? The Vita has 2 analog sticks, and although On the Loose won't start playing like its predecessors, it will fix the camera issue. Sony was smart enough to not let the second stick go to waste, and instead, buttons can be mapped to it, such as, a D-pad maybe? With the Vita, players aren't having to fight the camera as often and can move while also shifting the camera. On the Loose suddenly breathes new life when played on the Vita. Even the RC car becomes usable. Granted, this doesn't fix all of On the Loose's problems. The camera still feels like it can be pulled back a bit, and there are times that it will go wonky when in tight corners and enclosed spaces, especially when using the Skyflyer. Ape Escape On the Loose is a rare breed, a game that is somehow behind and yet ahead of itself, with a problem that was unlikely to be fixed. It's not a perfect game, but if you've got a Vita to play it on, I'd say go for it. However, if you're restrained to the system that it was intended for, give it a hard pass. The camera is all about giving you a bad time, unless you're some sort of contortionist.